everyone to stay tuned. My name is Rei Hotoda, and I'm the music director of the Fresno Philharmonic. And we are so thrilled to introduce a composer that we just performed his American fanfare on our first Masterworks series. Please help me welcome Adolphus Hailstork.
Hello, folks.
Hello, Adolphus. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I want to talk about your time in Fresno with the Fresno Philharmonic. We were so fortunate to have you come to Fresno before the pandemic, and this was the fall of 2019, our 1920 season, where we performed your piece, To Those Who Serve.
Yes.
And I think it was such a wonderful opportunity for our audiences to meet you in person. What was it like for you to hear our orchestra and to spend a little time in Fresno?
Well, I love your orchestra, what you call the Highway Symphony or something like that. It's, they play marvelously, considering they're dispersed throughout the state or something. But it's always good to work with you and your group. I especially liked how you did To Those Who Serve, but I was really thrilled with An American Fanfare. Your brass section is wonderful, considering these aren't people who hang out with each other day after day in a regular environment like that. It's they're very good listeners and sensitive, and I think that has a lot to do with you. So.
Well, thank you. You know, the American Fanfare is a piece we just performed in our Digital MasterWorks Series just this past January. And it's a piece that I think resonates so much today more than ever. Now, I believe this piece was written in 1981. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're right, it was.
And can you tell us a little bit about the background, why you wrote it, and who you wrote it for?
The Richmond Museum of Art, the Virginia Museum of Art, you might call it, I guess, was opening an American wing, and a wing of American paintings and sculptures. And they wanted to start it off with a fanfare that represented a kind of an American theme. And they held a contest for people in the state to write pieces. And this is the piece I wrote. And it did not win. But lo and behold, it's gone on to have a wonderful career all by itself. And conductors have taken it under their wing and performed it. And I think it does have a future, thanks to people kind enough to perform it. Yeah.
Well, I first heard it in Chicago, actually, at Ravinia. And I believe you were there at this concert.
Oh, that's right.
Members of the Chicago Symphony, which
That's right.
it. And from then on, I've been dying to conduct this.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, and so I was so thrilled that we could include it in our Digital Masterworks this season. It is such an incredible piece in that it's very patriotic.
Yes.
And what I love about it is this middle section that has this bluesy section.
Right. Right.
And so your music has this influences from other, musical genres.
Yes, I try to bridge two worlds. Obviously to your viewers, you can see that I am an African American, but I was raised and trained in the Euro-American tradition of classical music, and in upstate New York. I did not grow up in the South. I did not grow up in segregation or anything like that. And so my approach is ecumenical, you might say, trying to embrace all. And this piece, I'm hoping we're going to send this, my publisher and I are going to send this to the Marine Band after they just did such a wonderful job with another fanfare, and hope that they can put it on some of their programs. It's an American fanfare, and the reason I called it that is I wanted to distinguish it from Fanfare for the Common Man, which is the most famous of all American fanfares by Aaron Copland. But the thing I always kind of criticized about Copland's fanfare is that it left out a large segment of the population, meaning my folks. And so I wanted to write an American fanfare that had some blues licks in it that would represent the African American presence in this great country of ours. And so that's how it came to be written. And as I said, it didn't win the contest, but it certainly has won some conductors' hearts.
Definitely my heart. So let's talk about the fanfare that was just recently played last month in the inauguration by the President's own Marine Corps band. Can you tell us what piece that was?
It was a fanfare on Amazing Grace. That started out as an organ composition, just a setting of a kind of a fancy setting of the famous melody. And then I made a pipe organ album with my friend Dr. James Kosnick, and we decided added brass to it, dressed it up, brass and timpani, and it became American and Fanfare on Amazing Grace with brass and timpani and organ. And then because I thought for a festive occasion it'd be just perfect. And then I had an opportunity to conduct an orchestra for the grand opening or reopening of the Crispus Attucks Theater here in Norfolk, Virginia. Now, that's a theater that's in the quote-unquote African-American section of town, and was the place that famous musicians such as Duke Ellington, et cetera, the only place they could perform when they came to town way back in those days. And so I decided I was going to do an all Hailstork concert, and I was going to start off with something festive. Why don't I take this piece I did for organ and brass and score it for brass and strings and full orchestra? And lo and behold, that's the version that has been played all over the place, the orchestra version of the Fanfare on Amazing Grace. Then I fell out of my chair when I got an email from the conductor of the United States Marine Corps Band. Now, for those who don't know, that is John Philip Sousa's band, and it's the most famous band in the land, actually. And they said, could they have permission to transcribe it for the band for the inauguration? And I was so thrilled with that request. My publisher and I immediately said, of course, do what you like. And that's how it got on as the second piece in the prelude concert prior to these actual ceremonies, as people were coming in and being seated. And it was totally missed because everybody was talking over it on all the networks. But I subsequently, all the people I've alerted that it was going to be done, I have subsequently sent out a rehearsal recording of the band doing it. They were so kind. The colonel said, here's a rehearsal recording, because he knew the drill. He knew that I was not going to hear my piece in actual live time. And so I've got a very nice rehearsal recording. And that's how this piece came to be. It's has just grown and grown over the years.
Well, many heartfelt congratulations. That's just so fantastic. want to talk about, this past year has been very difficult for many musicians and composers and artists. And I want to see if your creative process has changed or your outlook has changed in the past year. And what are your thoughts about your future pieces? Will they include things that have happened in the past year for you?
Well, the pieces that will, the thing that I probably will not address the pandemic, but I am working on a piece that is going to address the death of George Floyd. I'm not going to put it that mildly, the actual murder in front of millions of people of George Floyd. And a friend of mine who's a poet, within 1 week of that murder, sent me a text. He was so furious. He sent me a text, which he called a requiem. And I looked at it. Now, usually when he sends me text, he's saying, hey, how about sending this? And I took a look at it. It captured a lot of the things I was feeling at the same time. And I decided, I asked him, do you want me to send it? And he said, oh, would you please send it? And so I've been working on that ever since. And it's a big piece, calls for a big choir, a big orchestra. And it has some jarring moments, but it ends with a statement of reconciliation, I believe, of we shall abide. I love that text, and we shall abide in peace and see if we can come to some understanding and some sense of peace in the country, and not always at each other's throats. So I love that ending. That's one piece. A piece I just finished is called Tulsa, 1921, for strings, percussion, and harp. And that is a 20-minute piece on, and mezzo-soprano, of course, that captures, or at least attempts to capture, the tragedy and the grief and the determination of the people from the Tulsa Massacre. I did not know about that. And in fact, many people did not know about the Tulsa Massacre until the recent 1990s, that it had been buried in history, just like the bones of those people were buried in mass graves. And it's a terrible story of a very successful African-American community that, because of some trumped up charge of rape, decided to trash the most prosperous suburb, a black suburb or section of Tulsa, and which used to be called Black Wall Street. And there's a 2-day carnage, and that's to me an important piece for me to write. I'm working on my 4th symphony, hint, 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 and that's going to be finished about the same time I finished the Requiem piece. And I recently wrote a piece for piano, which called Wounded Children, which I try to capture, my own personal grief about the children kept in cages in the Southwest of the United States, and subsequently have not been reunited with their families. We've got a lot to clean up in this place. Excuse me for getting too political, but that's the way I feel.
Really being creative and implementing a lot of social issues that are happening in our country today recently. So I commend you. I think that's fantastic what you're doing, bringing it to the arts and bringing it into music and bringing it out forward. I think it's so important as art.
I've never been an abstract composer. It's just writes according to counting to 12 and stuff like that. I mean, it's got to have some meaning, but it's probably because I came up as a singer. And when you sing in a choir, you're singing words that are making a statement. And that is what, when I write instrumental music, I also am seeking to make a statement most of the time. What I like is that musicians have gotten so resourceful. All you have to do is go on the internet and you can hear the Fresno Symphony. You can hear this chamber group playing this, or this soloist doing that, and musicians. It's like, you can't keep us down, folks. I mean, the pandemic might put a cloak over the situation for the time being, but we musicians will rise again. Now, I have to admit that as a composer, I kind of lucked out in my choice of occupation, because composers can sit at home next to their piano and their computers and everything and still write music. I'm the people who are suffering the most are performers, and let's hope that we can get this vaccine in everybody's arms and we can get back to business, so that we can all smile face to face. Exactly. Yes, and can shake hands with the conductor and walk out on stage. So we're going to come out of this.
Yeah. Well, we look forward to having you back in Fresno, and I look forward to seeing you again. But for everyone out there, please watch our January Masterwork Series. It's available free online and on our website, fresnophil.org, or our Fresno Phil YouTube page, and you will be able to hear the American fanfare by this wonderful composer, Adolphus Hailstork. Thank you so much, Adolphus, for joining us for our Stay Tuned interview. Please stay tuned and be well.
You too. Everybody stay well. Thank you very much.